Hey, welcome everybody to the After Show. Today, Jeff and I, we have a very special guest, Alex Mashinsky, and welcome and thank you for coming to the After Show.
Thanks for having me. You guys are great hosts, and let's jump into it.
And now, Off the Block with Jeff and Chip on the chain.
Beautiful, yeah, beautiful. So I'm going to kick it off to you, Jeff, for the first question, and then
Yep.
let's find out a little bit more about Alex. Let's learn a little bit more about him, about his background, and some probing questions.
Yeah, so this, we love to learn about our guests on the after show, and you have a really, amazing story, coming out of, being born into communism, raised in a socialist communist environment, being able to come out and, make your way to the U.S. and build amazing companies and really, benefiting from the free capitalist system. But I really want to understand more, I guess, what was the experience like and how did it really make its mark on you being in and living under communism?
Yeah. So these are all social experiments, right? If you think about communism or socialism, and here in the U.S., we look at them as bad ideas, but really each one of those social experiments has its benefits and has its detractions. And I see them as basically we are a young species. We're one of the youngest species on this planet, right? And we're still trying to figure out what is the right social construct, what is the right way to make all of us live happily on this planet. So for me, even though me and my family suffered under communism, when I look at the ideas of communism, they were all pure ideas. These people were, at least back in the early days, right, turn of the century, were trying to find a model that worked better for all of us on this planet, right? Socialism is the same thing. Socialism is another version in which the government basically says, look, we'll take care of society. We're going to be the safety net, right? And capitalism is great for people like me. I thrive under capitalism, right? I came to this country. I left communism. I left socialism. I came to the United States and started talking about ideas, and people actually listened. People invested. People helped me build companies, right? And people did well. And that would not happen either in socialism or in communism. But the American dream does not work today for 99% of Americans, right? It's great that the 1% is doing well, and I'm part of the 1%, probably part of the 1/10 of 1%. But I never forgot where I came from, right? I came to this country with $100 and a plastic bag. I didn't even have a suitcase. So you have to remember that more than half of the people on this planet lived on less than $10 a day, and you have to always think to yourself, what are you going to do about them? So we have a fourth system, right? We had three systems, three experiment, and we have a fourth system, which I view the internet and the blockchain as a fourth system, because when I look at my kids, they all live in some other world, and they all
Right.
basically sync. It doesn't matter if their friend is in Vietnam or China or Israel or in London, right? They're all on exactly the same level, playing the same games, interacting the same way. And the question is, how do we take that new infrastructure and fix the problem that capitalism has, that socialism has, that communism have? And that's really part of the things that we're trying to do with Celsius Network. We're trying to basically create a more easy construct in which, again, it's not just you working really hard for your money, which is like, I think the three of us belong to that club, right? We work really hard, but also how do we figure out, how do we enable people to have their money work for them, right? Because I think I have 6 kids at home, and I can tell you none of them want to work as hard as their dad, right? So they're not motivated by hard work. They're motivated by more of a balance between work and life, and spending time with their friends and so on. So these are we're going to need a new social construct, new social structure to accommodate this new generation.
That's fantastic. So when you start thinking about that new construct, I know, I mean, having a teenage daughter and knowing that, if I'm lucky to get a few words, but they live on the internet. I don't think they can think about a time, you try to describe what a cassette tape was. You try to talk about, things when you're a kid, and their attention span is about that big. They're like, yeah, that's great. But anyway, let me go back to my game, and let me go back to my my TikTok, or my Snapchat, and let me send some snaps. Where do you see the next social construct? Like, where is all this human experiment heading?
So look, it's definitely not there are negative sides to it, right? Because, for example, my kids, especially my teenager, their status or their standing in the virtual world is more important than in the real world, right? And that is not a good balance, right? They don't need to meet anyone face to face. Like I always say, like I need to close a deal, I got to get something done. I want to be face to face with that person. Yeah. For most of my kids, it's the opposite, right? They're like, oh my God, face to face. Don't let me talk to anybody. I can do anything you want on the computer or on my phone. So the world is tilted too much to the other side. And unfortunately, what we've just went through with the coronavirus has actually empowered that even more, because everybody was on lockdown for 2 months. So all of us had to live the life of our kids, the life that they didn't even notice. My kids didn't even notice it was corona.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Not at all.
That's it. Yeah, my son is oblivious.
Exactly. So I think we need to balance the two, and we cannot go from a world where everything was face to face to a world where nothing is face to face, right? And everybody's social distancing, and everybody is just ordering food and never leaves the house. So I think we're going to find a balance, but it's work in progress. I definitely don't have all the answers on that question.
Well, that's fine. I was just curious. So when you first arrived in the U.S., I know you came with $100 in a plastic bag. Let's say once you started getting settled in, what were some of the things, your perception versus the reality? In other words, what you thought it might be like, or what are some of the things that might have surprised you?
So the funny story is that I had to, I was living in Israel and I had to fly to Paris, and it was cheaper to buy a ticket going to New York with a stopover in Paris. So when I was in Paris, I had this free ticket to come to the US. I said, I'm just going to go there for a few days, see what it's all about. And I never left. That was 33 years ago, So I think I still have that ticket somewhere, the awesome. Free ticket going back somewhere in my drawer. But America, again, is a great place for the innovators, for the trailblazers, for the, it's the most amazing place in the world. But if you're not interested in any of these things, it is not a very good place to be in, right? I mean, I remember working in Europe, and I looked at people, and they were getting 8 weeks of vacation. I said, gosh, who wants to go on vacation for 8 weeks? That's punishment. That's horrible. I go on a vacation for a few days, and I'm crazy because I want to go back and do things, So really, most of us there are different buckets, and each one of us falls into a different bucket. And if somebody puts you in the wrong bucket, you are suffering. And it doesn't matter if you're on vacation or if you're working your ass off, right? So I think the issue is more about personalities, and the US used to attract all that best talent, right? People from all over the world would come to the US, build their dreams, live the American dream. And we as a society built, right, the wealth and built the success and created the most wealthy country that ever existed. And that was true basically since the turn of the century. But now the United States is the most indebted country in the world. We owe more money to more people overseas than anyone ever in history, times 10. So I think we kind of rested on our laurels for too long, and we are taking everything for granted because the US dollar is the reserve currency of the world, and we can keep printing and nothing happens. And people can say, look, you see, nothing happened. Let's print more. You see, we printed $10 trillion. Nothing happened. Let's print more.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
all we're doing, we are borrowing from the future. When we print $10 trillion, we go into the future, we grab money that belongs to our kids, and we spent it today to live this fancy lifestyle, but our kids still have an IOU that they have to pay. And what if all these kids don't want to work? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, it's going to be devastating. And it's interesting hearing your story. I grew up in Israel as well. I had the opportunity moving from the U.S. to there, being there, coming back, and it definitely had an impact on everything that I do today. Having that experience, and as I see with you coming and having experience moving to Israel, to the U.S. A lot of people in the U.S. Take for granted everything around us, and having the opportunity to build something out of nothing. And like you said, I've seen a lot of people that come to the U.S. with that same dream and make something of themselves. And people look around and say, how is it that these guys came over, whether it's from Israel or India or Africa or wherever they might be coming from, Vietnam, Southeast Asia, wherever they come to the U.S. and all of a sudden they're owning businesses, they're doing well. And then it's the next generation. A lot of people work 12, 13, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week for the next generation. And this is so poignant what you brought up, because now we have people that are working not for the next generation. They're only working for themselves and consumption and, consumerism. And like you said, and borrowing from the future, man, that it's really a different world. And we need, it's great to hear your voice, because I think we need more people, that are more outspoken as to, being able to it's reinstalling or reinitiating this concept of entrepreneurship and rebuilding for the future.
Right. I say bad things about banks and other institutions every day because I don't need a job with them. Most people will never say anything like that. God forbid, if I need a loan tomorrow and the bank is not going to give it to me, or if I need a job on Wall Street and they're going to find something I said 2 years ago that was negative, right? So a lot of people are they're thinking it, but they're not saying it, right? And so when we voice our opinions about things, and in some cases expose the fraud or the misuse or the abuse, a lot of people just nod their head and say, gosh, I knew about it, but I didn't have the nerve to go and say it, right? So we as a society, if you're looking at the 50s or 60s or 70s, people had much more of a backbone, right? They stood behind their principles much more than we do today. Today, our financial considerations come way ahead of anything that has to do with either moral issues or political issues or whatever. And we vote with our wallets, and right. Unfortunately, that is not a good thing for our society, right? And so I'm trying to awake. We all have that in us, right? I mean, we have 330 million people who live in this country. They all have a principle. They all have a backbone. They just need to find it and stand on it, because otherwise this whole thing is going to crumble, because the people who are leading us and the people who are you think are acting in our best interest are not. When people are talking about negative rates, or they're talking about inflation is good for you, I mean, that is just lunacy. People don't understand how the money works and how money is created, and how do you make money on money? There is no class in high school or in college or when you get your PhD that says how money makes money, right? They don't teach you that. That is like the best kept secret on Wall Street, because right. You get a 30 million a year bonus if you know how to make money on money.
That's it. Yeah. Are you, and this is interesting, as you have 6 children, you've raised your kids. We were just talking about that. They're very consumed in their online world. How did you raise them, from the beginning? Are you installing this idea of entrepreneurship, of having to work, having to earn your own way? They've all been born into, a very kind of, like you said, you're very wealthy. You've done really, really well for yourself. How has that had an impact on them?
Look, I unfortunately, I would say probably all my kids, don't look at me and say, I'm going to do better than my dad, right? And that is the problem with this new generation. The reason they do what they do is not because they're dumb or because they're lazy. Somehow they understand that we are leaving them with so much debt and so much uncertainty and so much stuff that they don't want to get married, they don't want to buy a home, they don't want to do all the things that we did, right? It's a universal thing. It's not just the United States, it's all over the world. So the bubble of debt that we created, right, by kicking the can down the line, down the world, right? We kick the can with the entire planet down the road, right? By reflating ourselves out of trouble again and again and again. I lived through 4 recessions in the United States, right? And every recession, what do? We caught a falling knife. We reflated it with the Fed or with fiscal policy, and we never solved any of the problems. So I think I can't blame my kids. I can't say, oh, it's their fault. They're lazy or they're not working hard enough. Also, my view of kind of parenthood is that nature's job is to experiment. We're just an experiment. Every one of us is just a genetic experiment. There's one of us, will never be another. And if this experiment is good, then you get the chance to create another generation. If the experiment is bad, chances are you're not going to get a lot of chance to have 6 kids, right? So, and each one of my kids is an experiment, meaning me forcing them to do this or that, putting them in the bucket, hoping that they will be in this bucket instead of this bucket is not good for them, and it's not good for me. So my job is to be a coach, and to be a coach if they want to do the opposite of what I'm doing. This is not about them trying to be me. This is about me finding what they are best in the world at, and helping them be the coach to get them to be the best they can be.
That's well said. I always figure out why my kids never want what I want for them. It's like weird. They have to be their own individual human beings, right? So, hey, I wanted to go into a little quick, we always do like a quick fire round here. I was going to go a quick fire round, just a couple questions to ask, or you can either answer them, you can hit pass. So Bitcoin or Ethereum?
50-50. I like both.
Beautiful. All right, here's a very important one, at least to me anyway. So when it comes to phones, Apple, or I would say iOS or Android?
So I love iOS, even though it's a closed system, and I'm an open systems guy, because they do act in your best interest. So it's one of those very rare cases where it is a closed system, but it is good for you. So in most cases, a closed system is bad for you. But in this case, we'll see how well Apple continues to practice Steve Jobs' vision. But for now, they get the vote.
Do you hear that, Jeff? I'm going to go ahead and maybe memorialize that
What?
on the channel.
I think my sound cut out.
I think that may have to be the opening video when you come to our channel. Alex talking about the benefits of, a closed system, but sometimes in your best interest. I love that. Okay, next question, coffee or tea?
I'm a coffee guy in the morning and a tea guy at night. So
weird, so am I.
I like both.
Beautiful. Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate. If I have only one vice in life, and believe me, all my employees and all the people I work with, they're all like looking for a vice. Are you a gambler? Are you like whatever? And I'm like, no, my only vice is I eat too much chocolate.
What's your favorite chocolate?
Dark chocolate, 70%. Nothing in it. That's it. Just pure dark chocolate. There's nothing better than that.
I agree. I eat the 85. I've tried the 90. That's a little bit
too much. No,
a little too much. It's like you can do too much of that. You got to scale it back a little bit.
That's good for cooking. If you're cooking with chocolate, the 95% is a good one. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So who do you admire the most?
So we that's a great point about who we admire, right? My heroes are Einstein, Tesla, the people who elevated society to the next level, right? And unfortunately today, if you look at most people in society, most of the heroes are going to be people who allocate capital. It will be people who earned a lot of money, and I have a lot of beef with that. As just one example, right? We celebrate Warren Buffett. He's the best investor in the world.
Mm.
Warren Buffett is the largest shareholder in the U.S. banks out of anybody else. He holds more shares in more banks than anyone else. The banks make most of their money through charging the poorest Americans fees. For example, last year, the poorest 100 million Americans paid $30 billion in overdraft fee, just one fee, overdraft fee. And all that money went to Warren Buffett as dividends, right? So when you look at the success story, you also have to look at how the money arrived there. Did the money arrive there because you did good or because you did bad? And supporting these practices, supporting companies that are not acting in the best interest of society, just because you can steal from people doesn't mean you're a good actor. and there are so many good ways to do things that I take. I have no problem saying it publicly. A lot of people say, "Oh, Alex, who are you to talk about Warren Buffett?" But I'm giving you one example of things that I would never support. I would never invest in a bank. I would never invest in a company that sells you drugs that you don't need, or all this bad stuff that's happening in society that we encourage just because these companies generate profits.
Yeah, right on.
That's great. I have a question, Chip.
Go ahead, jump in there.
Are you a scotch drinker?
No, I don't drink at all.
You don't drink at all?
I'm a virgin. I never was drunk in my life, not as a teenager and not as a never. The only Russian you would probably know who never drank in his entire life.
Yeah, that is
normally
true.
I thought that vodka is normally on the table as in a carafe like water.
No,
normally,
in
right?
Israel, there's no, at least when I was growing up or whatever, there was no alcohol anywhere. So it's not a common thing where you come home and you drink, or you go out to a bar and you drink. I didn't do any of these things growing up, or never.
A little bit different.
Even when in the U.S., everybody would go to a bar and I'll be like, "Sorry, I'm going home. Not interested."
Nice.
Do you think that had an impact, kind of staying focused and in tune with things? Is that from obviously?
Look, I have a different chemistry, I guess, because I don't like being down. I don't need something that takes me down. Like I'm running at full speed 24/7. So for me, being down is not being able to use my brain for a few hours. Why is that good? What is that good for? So for me, and again, most people look at me and say, "Oh, I would never want to live with this guy. He's crazy," So credit goes to my wife for suffering through this every day. But I have a unique skill set, and I want to run it to its max. Right? I want to use this brain as much as I can every day. Versus kind of try to mitigate it or whatever, contain it or whatever drugs do. I never done drugs either. So whatever those things do to your brain, they're not things I need.
Beautiful.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that sounds pretty fair. I mean, so do you have a favorite summer activity? Because I'm hoping that you at least would get away with your family at some point. No?
I'm here with my family in my house in the Hamptons. Do a lot of bike riding, kite surfing. Once a year, I do a motorcycle trip. So
oh wow, nice.
Either off-road, or offshore.
Well, I like offshore. I gotta see that.
Right? Offshore motorcycling is great. So you actually kite surf. That's impressive.
Yes, I wouldn't say I'm the best in the world at it, but I definitely try my best. I think the guy from Virgin is much better than me. What's his name?
Branson. Yeah, Richard Branson.
Branson, yes.
Yeah.
He can do it while naked girls on his back. I
yeah.
can do it just by myself,
He seems to be climbing mountains, going around the world in balloon. He seems to be doing everything all the time, but he's quite the adventurer. And is there
he's the brand, right? He created an amazing brand around Virgin, and he's the brand of the risk taker, the innovator. He's done a great job. I think he has like 600 companies or something. Branding those 600 companies. Yeah. So kudos to him. I thumbs up. He's a hero. He's a guy that I would definitely say, you should be like him, not like Warren Buffett.
Gotcha. What about a hobby? Is there something you love doing when you have the off time?
6 kids, 8 companies. Let me see. No, there's no time left.
Not
for anything.
crossword puzzles, maybe filling in the New York Times crossword puzzle or something like that.
Look, I'm a little bit dyslexic. It's very hard for me to read a book, a full book. So I'm more of a video or short stories guy and so on. What I do best is conceive ideas in my head and then put them into practice, right? So kind of seeing the future. I always joke saying that I live in the future all by myself and I'm waiting for everybody to join me, but for me, it's easy. No matter what the subject is, I can project myself 10 years forward and say, okay, well, what does the future look like? And then let's build that future, right? So for most people, it's like, why would you want to live there? All my friends are right here, So that's what I do. I have a unique skill. I found what I'm good at, and I just do it again and again. I just switch industries, right? I did it in telecom, and then I did it in transportation, and then in now in finance and so on.
That's great. Now you've traveled to a lot of places. What is your favorite place to go visit that you like to go back over and over again?
I couldn't say one place. I mean, I love going back to Israel. I think it's just a phenomenal place for kids to grow up. It's the freedom, the melting pot, the innovation, the startup nation. So definitely different than when I grew up there, where it's funny because my parents, I immigrated with my parents in 1972, and it was like few months before Yom Kippur, the big war. And my mother looked at my dad and said, I knew I shouldn't have listened to you coming to here. Look at it, they're gonna kill us. So we went from the fire from the pen to the fire. From communism to almost alienation. So I think look, the world is just a beautiful place. It doesn't matter where you go. It's just like I'm at awe. Like if I go to South America, or if I go to Europe, right? There's so much to see and so many interesting people and just life is like I don't take it for granted. Okay, I look at life as something that is this treasure that we all take for granted and we should be all thanking every day. And okay, well, what are you doing with it? You were given this life. All you were given is 80, 90, 100 years, whatever you were given. I'm not talking about you guys, I'm talking about your viewers, right? Yeah. What are you doing with it? Right? So you have to decide, are you going to become rich? Are you going to make the world a better place? Are you just going to focus on yourself? Right? And these are the things that, again, unfortunately, that's not what they teach you in school. That's
yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was about to say that unfortunately our society is structured where they put you in the production line and you come out a lawyer, or you come out an accountant, or you come out a businessman, or you come out a whatever. And it's not about you and your unique skill set, but this new environment, the internet, the blockchain, that changes everything, right? And now I think half of the universities, at least in the United States, are not going to reopen, okay? Because everybody's saying, gosh, first, they don't have the way to manage it from a health standpoint, and second, everybody's saying, wait a second, why am I can do everything remotely, and I can study in Harvard on my computer. Why am I going to go to this or that college? So I think society is really being reimagined and restructured. And that's why, like I said before in the previous video, this is the opportunity. Like if I, again, project myself 10 years to the future, in the future, no one needs a degree. You just need to prove that you're the best at something. It's not about that piece of paper. It's about you showing, here are the things I can do, and society running after you and saying, look, we will pay you a lot of money to do this, and this is no longer allocating capital, right? It's curing this disease, or it's caring for elderly, or it's whatever that is. That's where I think in the future, reward is going to be more about your contribution to society and less about how much financial how much did you create in terms of finance?
That's interesting. I mean, it's such a great statement. As I think about some of the things that you were saying that a lot of people don't do. People get stuck into a job, and they think that's the path for life. Is just get a job, work it, retire, and then you live. A lot of people end up dying as soon as they retire. And what's the point of retirement anyways if you're passionate about something. But I think you brought up probably one of the best points that I hope a lot of people embrace, and that's, do something that you're super passionate about. Find that one passion, find what you're amazing at. I think, you brought up another great point that before this, everybody was worried about buy the degree, which is basically what you're doing. You're paying a lot of money for a piece of paper that you hang up on the wall so that you can get a job so that you can retire, instead of finding that one thing. But I think it was really difficult before for a lot of people to find that passion. And what you're bringing up through this liberation, this freedom of this online world and everything else, is giving people an opportunity right now to reinvent themselves and find that passion. And you're contributing, to giving people that opportunity through what you did with the voice over IP, which has led to kind of the technologies that we have at our fingertips now, to even, Moip, taking money in that direction. But, to me, I'm taking away a lot from this conversation, and kind of
the pendulum,
reawakening some spirit. Yeah.
No, I agree with everything you're saying. And I think the pendulum has swung too much towards capitalism. And it's actually going to swing back more towards socialism and communism. But the infrastructure, the rails are going to be the internet and the blockchain. And I'm saying the blockchain so many times because you don't know what's true and what's not true. The only source of truth these days, like you can look at news and it could be 100% fabricated. And it will come to you from a source that you are relying on every day.
Every day.
Right.
So true.
So the source of truth on the blockchain is very hard to do that, right? Because you have zero proof. You have all these other tools that we're not using today. So I said that, and it was very controversial. I said that like 2 years ago, that the entire internet is going to move to the blockchain. And people are looking at me and saying, what are you talking about? The blockchain is this big and the internet is this big. And I said to them, look, when I created Voice over IP was an application on the phone network. Right? Because you have to dial on the phone network to get into the internet. Today, the entire phone network is an application on the internet, right? And that took 20 years. So when you look through it in the beginning of this little experiment, it looks to you like it's just a little thing, the blockchain. By the way, the blockchain is not connected in any way to the internet. The blockchain is like a 7-dimension universe that has nothing to do with our world, right? It's completely separate. Most people think it's the blockchain is part of the internet. There's no physical connection anywhere between those two systems. It's a completely different system. So to bring all of that over, you need to reinvent everything that's on the internet to run on the blockchain, right? So anyway, society is being restructured, is being re-engineered, and you don't necessarily need a PhD or an advanced degree in computer science to do that. You just need to project yourself. You need to understand what the future looks like, and then assemble a team that will help you do that. And Ethereum, the reason I love Ethereum is because that's exactly what they did. They looked at the future. They said the future needs a smart contract. Bitcoin, Vitalik went to the Bitcoin Foundation and pitched the idea to those guys, and they looked at it and said, "Who needs a smart contract?" Right? Just like AT&T told me, who needs voice of IP? Are you kidding me? He created Ethereum, and obviously most of the most successful applications are running on Ethereum these days.
That's a great point on that. Do you see that the smart contracts are a direct replacement for escrow accounts, letter of credit, and all of that? And what's the timeline that we're going to see smart contracts start replacing those type of mechanisms? I think that's interesting.
Well, so they're already replacing a lot of things. It's just that they're still young and there's still bugs and there's still, and unfortunately in that environment, there's no recourse. Like if you send a bank wire transfer to the wrong party, there's a 95% chance you're going to get it back, unless you sent it to like North Korea or Iran or something like that. You're going to get that money back.
Yeah.
With the smart contract, there's no recourse. There's nothing you can do. So we need more time to perfect that, but I do see a lot of functions that Wall Street does today with the centralized, trusted intermediary replaced with the smart contract. That is definitely coming, and it's coming. It will reduce those fees to zero.
That's beautiful. It's good to see and good to hear that that's on its way. Well, listen, Alex, I really want to, Jeff and I both want to thank you for really giving us the time and giving our audience a little bit of an opportunity to learn more about you, and you're sharing your knowledge and you're really sharing your time. So thank you, because I do believe you're making this whole community a better place by your vision. In parting, is there anything you'd like to say on the way out before we close this segment out?
Look, we're living through a revolution. In my entire life, I only lived through one, which was the internet. Very few of us get to live through two of them and do something about it. And for all of your viewers who are thinking, I don't have the skills, and who am I, and I didn't finish high school. I got thrown out of high school. I got thrown out of university. I only did 2 semesters in Tel Aviv University. So that doesn't matter. What matters is your passion. What matters is your commitment, is your grit. That is much more important than any degree or anything else. The most successful entrepreneurs in the United States, most of them are flunked through college. Most of them did not graduate their university. So that has nothing to do with anything. You name them, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Larry Ellison, just go down the list, okay? Until you hit somebody who actually has a degree, So the point is that now is the opportunity. This is better. I've never seen a better opportunity to do something, right? And it's just getting better and better and better, even though we're suffering through all of these health risks and so on. So any one of you who's not taking this opportunity and is not taking action, you can only blame yourself. There's no one else to blame. You cannot blame the government. You cannot blame the economic cycle, or I couldn't get a loan. You live in America. You can do anything.
Well said.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being here, guys. That's it. Check out more on the chain, onthechain.io. We're going to be doing some big changes with that. And also, thank you everybody for joining us tonight, today, whenever this airs, Jeff, wherever you are in the world. We can't say that anymore because it depends on where you are. Thank you, everybody, and we'll talk and see you soon.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.